How does the milk really get into the breast, and how does it keep coming time and time again? The lactating breast undergoes a fascinating process that will support the growth and development of the newborn. You probably noticed early in your pregnancy that your breasts had become fuller and your nipples were more tender than before. On the outside of the breast, you can see a darkened area around the nipple called the areola. Your nipple and the areola may have enlarged and darkened, and the small bumps on the areola, called Montgomery glands, become more prominent. The Montgomery glands are thought to be the source of the mother's smell, which helps the baby to find the breast and to recognize his mother. With this growth, blood flow to the breasts increases and veins in the breast may become clearly visible. Inside the breast are fat and supporting tissue that give the breast its size and shape. Nerves which transmit messages from the breast to the brain to trigger the release of hormones. Little sacs of milk-producing cells or alveoli that produce milk. Milk ducts that carry milk to the nipple. Surrounding each milk-producing cell are small muscles that contract to squeeze the milk out into the ducts. There is also a network of blood vessels around the alveolus that brings the nutrients to the cells to make milk. Starting around the 3rd month of pregnancy, a cocktail of hormones leads to the proliferation of the milk-making cells and ducts in your breasts as they prepare for milk production, much like getting a factory up and ready for production. About halfway through your pregnancy, your body has become fully capable of producing breast milk, which means that even if your baby is born prematurely, you will be able to produce breast milk. Colostrum is the first milk that is produced, and some women notice this about midway through pregnancy. Some don't. It makes no difference to future milk production either way. It's not unusual to hear a new mom on the first day after birth say, "But I don't have any milk." Although small in amount, colostrum is highly nutritious and is available in the breast in quantities that are close to the capacity of a newborn baby's stomach. Your body is signaled to begin milk production with the expulsion of the placenta. Once this occurs, the levels of the hormones progesterone and estrogen start dropping to a point where they can no longer stop the action of prolactin and the other hormones necessary for milk production. The initial manufacture of milk happens whether baby is put to the breast or not. Continued milk production is another matter. This depends on frequent and regular stimulation of the breasts and the removal of milk. When your baby's mouth touches the nipple and areola, nerve cells will send a signal to your brain, causing the release of hormones, the two main ones being prolactin and oxytocin. Prolactin activates the milk-producing cells. There are receptors in the breast tissue that recognize and respond to specific hormones. Frequent feeding in the early days helped to develop prolactin receptors, thus making the breast more sensitive to prolactin. Oxytocin is responsible for making the milk available to your baby by causing tiny muscle cells within the breast to contract, squeezing milk from the milk cells, widening and shortening the milk ducts, and releasing milk to baby via the nipple. This release of milk is called a letdown or milk ejection reflex. The breasts don't flow all the time. The letdown is like baby turning the tap on. Several letdowns occur during a breastfeed. Some women feel the first one, but none feel the subsequent ones. According to research from the University of Western Australia, baby receives about 35 ml of milk per letdown. The only determinant of the amount of milk baby receives is the number of letdowns that occur during a feed, not the numbers on a clock. Breast size and storage capacity. Many women worry that their breasts are not the right size for breastfeeding. Breast size does not determine how much milk is produced. Breast storage capacity varies greatly among women and is not necessarily related to breast size. So some women may need to feed more frequently than others. But breast size or storage capacity does not determine how much milk you make overall. The more milk your baby drinks, or that you remove from the breast, the more milk your body will produce. Back to the factory analogy. The more orders that come in, the more need for the factory to speed up production to fill the orders. If baby is getting milk from another factory, i.e. formula, the breast factory will not be getting the order, so will downsize production. Giving supplements in the first 2 months has been shown by researchers to significantly decrease milk supply. Enough milk. Just like the factory, the more furiously the orders come in, the more the indication for increased production. On day 1, your newborn baby's stomach capacity is only about 1 teaspoon, so frequent small feeds are required. This frequent feeding in the first few days allows for good practice for both mom and baby before the milk volume increases dramatically. Baby's stomach capacity increases along with the milk supply. Frequent feeds in the early days sets the breast for future milk production. To illustrate your baby's stomach size, for day 1, look at the size of a marble, a good marble for day 3, and a golf or ping pong ball for day 10. What comes out must have gone in. By day 5, a good indication that baby is getting ample milk is what he is presenting you with in his nappy. He will have at least 5 wet nappies per day, and more importantly, his poos or stools will have changed from black to green to yellow. He will have at least 4 loose yellow stools per day, maybe many more. After about 3 to 6 weeks, some babies will change their stooling pattern and only have 1 large stool every 3 or 4 days, or maybe at even longer intervals. This is normal and does not mean that your baby is constipated. Apply Bepanthen ointment at every nappy change. Bepanthen is effective in the everyday prevention as well as treatment of nappy rash. Colostrum or newborn milk. In the first few days, the breast produces yellowish milk called colostrum. This is milk specifically designed for the newborn period. Its main function is to provide protection, enhance the baby's immune system, and mature the baby's digestive tract. The colostrum also protects the gut by lining the intestines against potential allergens, and has a laxative property which helps the baby pass the first stool called meconium, and thus helps lessen the incidence and severity of newborn jaundice. This milk is thick and sticky in consistency and is secreted in small amounts, but is all your newborn baby requires. Mature milk. Between days 2 and 8, the milk increases in quantity and changes in appearance and composition. This is the mature milk. This is sometimes referred to as the milk coming in, an unfortunate phrase that implies there was no milk before that, which of course is just not so. As the mature milk becomes available, the breasts may feel heavy and lumpy. This fullness rarely lasts more than 24 hours. It is due to congestion in the breasts and not just the accumulation of milk. It is important to keep the milk flowing at this stage by feeding frequently. Releasing the milk allows for the lymph and blood to drain away more effectively and lessens the congestion. Foremilk and hindmilk. Foremilk is the milk that can be expressed from a breast prior to a feed. Hindmilk is the milk that can be expressed from that same breast immediately following the end of a feed. There is no magic number of minutes a baby needs to breastfeed in order to get the hind milk. The fat and calorie content of breast milk varies from the beginning of a feed to the end. It's a process. It is quite possible for the foremilk at one feed to have more fat than the hind milk at another feed. Foremilk is not an inferior type of milk. It is full of important nutrients that are vital to your baby. Fat content in hind milk is reliant on many different factors. However, 70% of the variability of fat in milk is due primarily to two things: the degree of fullness of the breast and the time elapsed since the previous feed. The emptier the breast, the higher the fat content. The shorter the interval between feeds, the you to eat lunch today. Knowing how long it took you to eat your meal does not give anyone any idea of how much you ate. Some people eat very quickly. Some are leisurely diners. Babies are not little machines. Some are gourmets and like to take their time, and some are little barracudas. Baby needs to be sucking comfortably and effectively. If he is gulping down the milk, maybe 5 minutes is enough. If he is more sedate, he may need 20 to 30 minutes or more. Baby will come off when he is ready and may ask for a second course in a few minutes. Let your baby, not the clock, tell you when he's full. Imagine a dinner at which the waiter bustles over and tells you your time is up. Recent studies have validated the fact that the number of milk ejections or letdowns during breastfeed is the only factor related to the amount of milk the baby consumes, regardless of the length of the breastfeed. How often does baby need to breastfeed? How many times did you eat or drink something today? Coffee break, snack, chewing gum, TV nibbles? Most adults have an urge to eat about every 90 minutes while they're awake. Why do you eat or drink? Hunger, thirst, comfort, for social reasons, just because? Taking into account baby's stomach capacity in the first days, it is easy to see that newborns require very frequent feeds. Some babies are sleepy at first and need encouragement to feed frequently, but many newborns like to breastfeed a lot, about 8 to 12 times in 24 hours. In fact, studies show that feeding at least 9 times per day in the first 2 weeks really gets breastfeeding off to a good start. Human milk is quickly and easily digested in about 1.5 hours. This doesn't mean that baby will need to eat every hour, but at times this may be so. In utero, baby was fed 24/7. The breast takes over where the placenta left off. Breastfeeding provides warmth, security, body contact, reassurance and relaxation, as well as just food. Don't try to put your baby's favorite activity on a schedule. Forget the clock and enjoy each other, the way the breastfeeding relationship was meant to be. You and your baby are unique. Your breastfeeding relationship will not be exactly like any other. It's worth repeating. Feeding frequently is the best way to ensure a good milk supply and a healthy, happy baby. It's a system as old as humankind, and it is designed to work. The first 4 to 8 weeks of life with a new baby can be intense. Baby is growing at a rapid rate, and his needs change almost on a daily basis. Many babies have a fussy period, usually in the late afternoon. They just don't settle. This is not colic or a sign of too little milk. They tend to group many small feeds together, cluster feeding, then usually settle down for a long sleep afterwards. Remember that the shorter the interval between feeds and the emptier the breast, the higher the fat and therefore calorie content. Your breasts may feel empty, but this is not a cause for concern. Growth and development. Babies are born with excess fluid and brown fat. They tend to lose about 7% of their body weight during the first 3 to 4 days after birth. This is due to the loss of fluids in the baby's tissues, as well as the passing of meconium. Babies usually regain their birth weight by about 10 days. Boy babies double their birth weight somewhere between 3.5 to 6 months, and girl babies between 4 and 6 months. Effective sucking. As we have seen, the time spent at the breast is no indication of how effectively baby is feeding. If he is at the breast for 60 minutes, but not transferring milk, then no amount of time will be sufficient. A baby who latches on well gets milk well. A baby who latches on poorly has more difficulty getting milk, and he is likely to cause painful and damaged nipples. And if he does not get milk well, he will usually stay on the breast for long periods thus aggravating the pain. Signs of an effective latch: comfortable, short chopping jaw motions to start, then slow, deep, steady jaw motions, about 1 per second, jaw hesitations or cuss sound when baby swallows, usually with every 1 to 3 jaw strokes, occasional rests or return to short strokes, followed by more deep, steady strokes. Nipple is the same shape before and after the feed, not pinched or misshapen in any way. Appetite spurts or frequency days. Some babies seem to suddenly wake up around 2 weeks after birth and may dramatically increase the number of times they need to be breastfed. These frequency days may occur again around 6 weeks and 3 months. The baby's behavior changes from being contented to being fussy for about 48 to 72 hours. Patience and some extra feeding in order to increase your milk supply will see you both through this time. This is nature's way of increasing your milk supply. Babies also tend to sleep less than parents expect and will not necessarily just eat and sleep, but begin to have wakeful periods where they will like to interact with mom and dad. Nighttime needs. Young babies grow at a phenomenal rate and have a physiological need to be fed at night. Also, your breasts can become engorged and uncomfortable if too long a time elapses between feeds. Prolactin levels are naturally higher during the night than in the day, so breastfeeding at night especially helps to maintain a good supply of milk. Nipple care. Apply Bepanthen to the nipple area after a feed. Bepanthen is used for the prevention and treatment of cracked and fissured nipples. An important factor is that Bepanthen does not need to be wiped off the nipple area before baby latches at the next feed. Your diet has no real impact on the amount and quality of your breast milk. The amount of milk your breasts make depends on how often and how effectively your baby is breastfeeding. Ideally, a healthy diet should have begun even before you fell pregnant. During the time that your baby was growing inside your uterus, while he was developing, his health depended on a good source of nutrition from your diet. Also, while you were pregnant, your body laid down fat stores, and it is from these, together with your diet, that help you as a new mom to cope with the extra energy that you need for breastfeeding. Even if your diet was poor, your breast milk would still be enough and of a good quality, although you might be feeling more tired and be less resistant to infection. The flavor of the variety of foods you are eating is constantly changing the flavor of your breast milk. It is preparing your baby for the time when you are going to add the same variety of solid foods to his diet, which is recommended to be only after 6 months. If you are a vegetarian and your diet does not contain any animal proteins, such as eggs, fish, and chicken, then you may need to add supplements of vitamin B12. In the early days, your baby may have difficulty coping with eliminating caffeine. Intake of coffee and other caffeine-rich drinks, such as tea, cola, or other soft drinks, should be limited to 5 cups or less a day. As he grows older, this will become less of an issue to your baby. You do not need to drink large amounts of fluid or milk in order to produce more breast milk. It is better to have something to drink when you are thirsty or whenever you sit down to breastfeed. In other words, drink to cope with your thirst. There are no foods that you need to eat or to avoid while you are breastfeeding, as it is rare for a particular food or food group to be responsible for causing an upset behavior in your baby. If you begin to suspect that one of the foods you are eating seems to upset him, then you would simply leave that food off your menu for a while. This is a better idea than not eating many of the foods, such as curries, tomato, cabbage, or garlic, that may form a staple part of your diet.